Welcome back to another episode of the Wealth Building Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Constantino, and today we are kicking off a three-part series entitled, What is a Real Estate Syndication? In today's episode, part one, we are going to talk about basic structure of a real estate syndication and give a brief overview of what is a real estate syndication. So if you haven't already downloaded a copy of my ebook entitled Real Estate Syndication 101, I encourage you to click on the link in the show notes here and download your ebook. And a lot about what we're talking about is in the ebook. So I encourage you to download the ebook and learn more about what is a real estate syndication. So click on the link and download a copy. Let's get started. So what is a real estate syndication? Simply put, a real estate syndication is when multiple investors pool their money together to purchase a real estate asset and partner with an operator who does all the work of managing the asset. So, what is a real estate syndication? A real estate syndication is simply investors coming together, pooling their money, their investment dollars together to help with a down payment on a real estate property. The multiple investors that do that when they come together are called passive investors, silent investors, call them limited partners or LPs for short. And the one that does the work, the hard work, is called the operator or the general partner or syndicator or sponsor or the lead sponsor. But normally it is, in this industry, it is normally differentiated between the GP and the LP, the GP general partner and the LP limited partners. So both the limited partners and the general partners split the ownership of the property. Thus, profits are split between the limited partners and the general partners. So the primary benefit for the limited partner is that the limited partner relies on somebody else doing all the hard work. And the limited partners still get a share of the profits and ownership of the real estate asset that they've invested. And then the primary benefit of the general partner is that he is able to attain ownership and profits in consideration for his sweat equity in managing the deal. So let me give you a very quick example of how I got started in real estate syndication. So I got started in a real estate syndication because one day after church in the parish hall, a gentleman came to me and started talking about real estate. And I mentioned a specific investment deal that we were looking at. And we were talking about how we're going to need to raise money and look to bank to get lending on a property that we wanted to acquire. And he immediately looked at me and he said, Jeremy, I can be your bank. And so this was back in 2016. And I didn't really know anything about syndications at the time. I didn't know what I was doing other than the gentleman asked me and told me I could be your bank. And I said, okay, that's fantastic. So we just on the back of a napkin there in the parish hall, we wrote out our agreement saying that based on him in helping with the down payment, he would get a certain percentage equity in the deal. He helped in the payment with the down payment. We acquired the property, and then I went ahead and renovated the property, fixed it up, and sold it. And at the end of the day, we split our profits based on the original agreement of a certain percentage going to him, a certain percentage going to me. So in general, some of these deals like this could be a 50-50 split, meaning since I'm doing all the hard work of renovating the property, I get 50% of the profits, and the investor will get 50% of the profits. Sometimes there's not much work that the general partner will have to do and is comfortable with just getting 10% of the profits, and then the limited partner, the investor, get 90%. So that was my first experience with that. And that went so well, we did it again and again and again and again. And then our investor pool grew. So it grew from one person at the parish hall after mass, after church, to 3, 4, 5 investors. And then it just started ballooning from there because they all realized the benefit of investing in a real estate from a passive investment side. So that's an example, my first example of how I started growing in syndication. And I just want to clarify what is not considered a syndication. What is not considered a syndication is when you have two partners coming together to help fund a deal, but both of them are actively involved in managing and working on the deal. So that I started that back in 2015, and that was actually my first deal in 2015. I had a close friend come to me and say, "Hey, Jeremy, let's do a deal together." And when we did that deal together, he would actually drive in and actually do hard manual labor alongside of me, fixing up the property. In that scenario, it is called a joint venture, a JV. Two owners doing work together on a property, an ownership. The ownership could be whatever types of split, but that is typically called a JV, a joint venture, not a syndication. The syndication, on the other hand, the main difference is that there's a group of owners, group of partners that are passive. They don't make decisions. They don't have influence on the property. They don't go work on the property. They don't find the deal. They don't look for the deal. They don't do any of that. It's completely passive. And in that term, it's called syndication. So why is there a lot more activity in commercial real estate right now in real estate syndications? And why has it become more popular? Why are we doing this podcast? There's a key moment in history, and that was the Jobs Act of 2012. And in 2012, what happened is it allowed limited partners to participate in syndications in which the syndicator, the general partner, was permitted now to publicly advertise to the public these deals and to get an exemption from the Securities Exchange Commission, exemption from having them file and go public. So you see, when there's a passive investor investing in getting ownership of an entity, that an entity is what is purchasing the property, that is a trade of a security. A security is the ownership piece. And the United States government considers that trading securities, and that is now falls under the jurisdiction of the Securities Exchange Commission. And therefore, when you would do such a thing, you would have to go public and file for public with the Securities Exchange Commission. However, in 2012, a main change occurred where you can get an exemption from going public, from the SEC, get an exemption. It's 506B and 506C. Now the rule exemptions that the general partner, the owner, can advertise publicly to the whole world, saying, or to mainly in the United States, to the whole world, saying, we have great deals. We have a great deal. Come invest with us. And before 2012, you couldn't do that. You couldn't get that exemption. You would have to publicly you have to apply through the SEC to register as a public, and nobody would do that because the process is ridiculously expensive and time consuming. So 2012 was a game-changing moment in real estate, commercial real estate syndication, and now owners, general partners, the lead sponsors have realized that in 2012, and now over the last 10 years, over the last decade, we've seen an exponential growth in these real estate syndications, because the general partners are now publicly advertising these deals, and to combine the 2012 act, combine it with technology. So now in technology, over the last decade, it has been easier now for investors to invest passively in deals all over the country, because the ease of investor portals. You could do due diligence on the operator and the general partner much easier, much faster, much more efficiently in this last decade than even a decade ago. So our technology, the internet, has made investing passively into real estate syndication so much more efficient, so much safer. More people are more comfortable now, and people can invest 50, 30, 100,000, even millions of dollars very effortlessly through the ease and comfort of the internet. So, in a nutshell, part one now of what is a real estate syndication. So, summary again: real estate syndication is simply passive investors pooling their funds together and to help with a down payment on a property, a commercial real estate property, and the owner, or the general partner, the GP, lead sponsor, many different terms, the syndicator, is the one that runs the whole project, finds the project, manages it, and sells it, and they get a percentage of the assets, the percentage ownership, and a percentage of the profits, and that is split with the limited partners. And the limited partners get a percentage ownership and a percent of the profits based on how much they contribute to the down payment, to how much capital they bring to the table. So in a nutshell, that is what a real estate syndication is. That's the basic structure and how it operates. So again, if you haven't already, please download a copy of my ebook, Real Estate Syndication 101. And I talk about a little bit of what I talked about today, talked a little bit more about the history in that ebook, and I talk a little bit more about the background of different types of alternative investments and how this fits in with the different types of investments. And in the ebook, I talk a little bit more about the roles and responsibilities of normally what a general partner is responsible for, and what are the responsibilities of the limited partner as well. So there's a couple, and I'm going to talk about that in the third one, talking about due diligence, the third part of this series. So that's a wrap for this first part of what is a real estate syndication, part one. And join me next for part two. And in part two, we're going to discuss the benefits of investing, the benefits of why limited partners do this. So that's a wrap for this episode of the Wealth Building Strategies Podcast.